Hi, welcome back to Exclusive Recap. The movies start with Julia moves to Bucharest with her better half Francis, who has been given a marketing position. Francis' knowledge of the language originates from his mom's familiarity, while Julia's newness to the language leads to a feeling of existential boredom in her, exacerbated by her bombed profession as an entertainer. They move into an apartment complex that has an enormous picture window. That evening, incapable to rest, she watches through that window as downpour pours vigorously down and understands that a man is watching her from the structure across the road. To free herself of her boredom while her better half works extended periods of time, Julia endeavors to become familiar with the language while really getting to know the Yet, as she investigates the city, the passion on her back are constantly raised in light of the fact that she is surpassed by the disrupting sensation of continuously being followed. Julia and Francis were returning one night after a walk when they went over a group clustered before an emergency vehicle, lodging one person checking out at the group in paralyzed shock. Julia later gains from the news that the lady was killed. Her trepidation gets compounded when during a dinner discussion with Francis' work partner she discovers that the lady had her head executed and it is connected with serial killing. Julia's quick examination in the internet the following day gives her information of the Spider, a chronic serial killer who has been beheading young women. A meeting with one of the ones who had been gone after 2 days prior uncovers that the executioner had gone into her home in the dead of the evening, squeezed a cushion over her face, and put a blade over her throat. Be that as it may, he had quit going through the deed and had sat adjacent to her and watched. She felt that he had been sitting for quite a long time. Julia's fears about being followed returns while strolling through the city one day, and she enters a cinema, playing Stanley Donen's 1963 film Act, trying to dodge him. As she sits in the theater and gets comfortable to watch the film, she understands that the man has sat straightforwardly behind her. In a conspicuous frenzy, she leaves the theater and strolls into the closest grocery store. Understanding that the man hadn't surrendered, she figures out how to give him the slip and take cover behind the service entryway, attempting to get a brief look at the man's face. At the point when found by one of the workers in the store, she said sorry and exits through the secondary passage. That evening, Francis gets back home to find Julia fatigued by the experience. To assure her, they go to the store to audit the security film. She figures out how to distinguish the man by means of the security film and snaps a photo of him. Even as Francis experiences difficulty trusting Julia's cases of being followed by the man, Julia feels solace and a feeling of connection with her neighbor, Irina. One evening, when they are having drinks, Irina is interrupted by her ex, Christian, thumping at the entryway. Irina holds fast and makes him leave. She likewise shows Julia the cabinet where she keeps her gun, a gift from Christian, for her security. Soon thereafter, as Julia gets back, she glances through the window and sees the man watching her once more. Dubious, she waves at him, and regrettably, he waves back. As Francis returns, Julia advises him regarding the occurrence and chooses to call the police. Both Francis and the cop take a quizzical look at her curiously while she is persuaded that the man watching her is a similar man who had been following her. She even showed the image she had taken from the CCTV film. After several days, Julia follows Daniel through the city, in the long run following him to a strip club named The Gallery. There she is met by Irina, who she learns works there. She likewise discovers that Daniel is a sweeper working at the strip club. However, Irina can't recollect him as she faces men having similar stupid demeanor over the course of the day. Consequently, this large number of countenances become a haze sooner or later. Sometime thereafter, Julia hears a disturbance in Irina's loft. The walls between their condos are flimsy enough that she could plainly hear glass breaking and a weep for help from Irina. Thumping on her entryway over and again, Julia gets no response, and she at long last persuades her neighbors to help her open the entryway. At the point when they at last succeed, she sees the house empty and one of her neighbor's cats sitting on the dressing table, accepted to be the one to push over the light, subsequently causing the upheaval that Julia had heard. Francis becomes angry with Julia, trusting her feelings of dread to be unwarranted. He additionally informed her that the chronic executioner the Spider has been at last captured. The following day, Julia is met by Christian, Irina's ex. Julia informed him that Irina never got back, which makes him stressed in light of the fact that they should get together after Irina left for work. She demands Christian to go with her to the adjoining building and assist her with facing Daniel. Christian thumps on the entryway of his house, yet nobody replies. After Christian leaves, Julia at long last summons the willpower to thump on the entryway herself. Yet it is replied by a new older man. Sometime thereafter, when Francis has gotten back, Julia is visited by a cop joined by Daniel, who had blamed Julia for following him. Subsequent to presenting clarifications, Julia and Daniel hesitantly shake hands while the official chalks this occurrence up as a misconception. Having went with Francis to an organization party, Julia figures out how to utilize her limited knowledge on the Romanian language to gather that she and her feelings of fear are objects of laughter, which Francis uses to adapt with his co-workers. Angrily, she leaves the party and loads up the subway. The train car was almost empty, however she saw Daniel sitting farther away. He moves toward her and attempts to explain his voyeurism because of the devastating depression he feels because of caring for his sick father. She would have trusted him, however she sees his shopping pack and what is all the earmarks of being the framework of a cut-off head. Deboarding the train, she quickly strolls to her house and starts gathering her packs with the plan to leave this city quickly. Notwithstanding, she hears the sound of music playing in Irina's room. Interest getting the better of her, she chooses to examine. She enters the loft and finds Irina's headless cadaver resting up against a seat. Before she could shout, Daniel utilizes the plastic sack he has been conveying to cover her, thumping her oblivious. When she regained consciousness, she finds Daniel over her. He explained how he killed Irina and exposing himself to be the serial killer. The spider. He narrates to Julia that he and Irina hid in the storeroom when Julia entered with the landlord days back to search for Irina. When Julia hears Francis entering into their house, she tries to shout, however, Daniel quickly cut her throat with his knife. Blood spilling from her neck, she endeavors to creep to the footstool where Irina keeps her weapon yet stops. Daniel inclines down and watches her as she passes out. On entering her home and unable to find Julia, Francis calls her on her cell phone. Hearing the ringtone from Irina's home, he leaves to the hallway and sees Daniel leaving the room. The two lock eyes, however before Francis can do anything, Daniel is shot on various occasions from the back, curving and tumbling to the ground. The last thing Daniel sees is a bloodied Julia, who has figured out how to find the firearm and kill him. As Francis strolls over in shock towards the horrendous scene, Julia, in her ridiculous clothing, gazes at him stonily, saying "I told you so." The movie ends. Help Xclusive recap by like and subscribe. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.